I'm Algenon Cash, and you're locked in. So much great news coming out of the entire Triad, especially out of Greensboro right now. If you're a business owner or you follow economic development like I do, or you're an investor and you care about these kind of things that's going on with our local and regional economy, so many great things happening in North Carolina, but specifically a lot of great things happening right here in the Triad. And to be even more specific, a lot of great things really happening right next door in Greensboro with the Toyota battery manufacturing plant that's been announced. And then we are hearing that maybe here in the next few days, we may hear about Boom Supersonic locating to Greensboro. But one of the gentlemen, I'm so glad to reconnect with my guest today because Robbie Perkins, who is a former mayor of Greensboro, also a top-notch, high-profile commercial real estate broker across our state, but he is also someone that really understands economic development. This was the gentleman that so many years ago was out preaching regionalism and heart of the Triad and so many things. And so with some of this recent news, I wanted to get Robbie back in here to lock in with me. Robbie, how you doing, man? It's nice to be reconnected.
Algenon, it's a pleasure to be with you this afternoon, and I can tell you, you haven't aged a bit.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I do appreciate that, man. I'll be honest with you, Robbie, just to kick in, when I looked at or read the announcement about Toyota coming, and as I've talked more and more with economic development officials about what could be happening with Boom, I know we might be getting an announcement on that as early as this week. And just so many other things that have happened with Greensboro, the Performing Arts Center, the development of some of the infrastructural assets in Greensboro. And I could only think back to the many conversations that you and I've had over the years. And these are a lot of things that you were preaching about, a decade ago. How do you feel to see all these great positive things happening, around the Triad, but in Greensboro specifically?
Well, I'm very thankful that as a region, we've started to join together. A lot of that is because there are a lot of folks that have decided that we're a whole lot better if we're going to win as a region, and individually we also win. And I think the thought process behind the whole Carolina core effort has been part of the success. So I would take this well beyond Greensboro, and compliment the leadership in Winston-Salem that recognize that we're all going to be a whole lot better off if we work together. So I think the projects might be landing at the airport with the Boom Supersonic, or at the Randolph Greensboro mega site. But I also think that Whitaker Park has had a huge success in the past 12 months as well. So this is something that's spreading across the Triad, and frankly, I think it's our time to get some real successes here in our area.
Robbie, at the introduction of the interview, I spoke a little bit about the heart of the Triad, which was a vision and an idea that you had more than 10 years ago. I recall when those conversations were happening. You speak about how we finally have gravitated towards regionalism with Carolina Core today. What changed? What's different today than it was 15 years ago when you initially started preaching this mantra?
Algenon, I went to Becky Smothers, who was the mayor in High Point, and Alan Joines, who's the mayor in Winston-Salem. And I wasn't the mayor, I was on the council, but I asked our mayor, Keith Holliday, if I could launch this effort, and he said, go for it. And I went to the planning department in Guilford County and the planning department in Forsyth County, trying to find a map that connected the two counties. They couldn't do it. They didn't have one. And the GIS systems in those days didn't have anything that we could really work on, that no man's land between Greensboro and Winston-Salem. And so it took the GIS folks about 4 weeks to produce a map so that I could meet with the Mayor Joines and Mayor Smothers and really discuss the concept. And that just shows you how far we've come today with the advent of all the technology. I mean, you zoom back and forth, and you get on Google Earth, and there's no lines, and we can all see what works and what doesn't work, and it's really a a great thing. So I think part of it is that technology has really helped us. But one thing that we learned through the Heart of the Triad effort is that we weren't talking enough. And for several years, the planning directors in 7 jurisdictions, uh, Kernersville, Oak Ridge, Summerfield, Greensboro, High Point, Winston-Salem, all got together and started talking on a monthly basis. And this kind of helped work some of the infrastructure. I think one of the big things that's happening to link us all together is the transportation infrastructure. Greensboro's urban loop on the western side really connected a lot of things to the airport that weren't connected before. And I think you're seeing the same thing in Winston-Salem on the east side of town with the completion of the first section of the urban loop and the announcement this week of the south side. So when all of this stuff comes together, I think the Triad is going to have transportation infrastructure it's unparalleled. I mean, uh, uh, there aren't any major road systems that are going to need to be done. Salem Parkway is a jewel. We recently have participated in the sale of some industrial land right across from Amazon and FedEx ground for a 155-acre development that North Point out of Kansas City is doing. It fronts on Salem Parkway. The intersection that serves it is Macy Grove Road. That intersection is there because of FedEx ground and Amazon. And that intersection is there because Arthur Samet and D.H. Griffin heard about the Heart of the Triad. And they said, we need to put some of our resources out there and start working on it. And they brought a water line in from Forsyth County. They brought sewer in from the city of High Point, and they got FedEx ground to locate a 400,000 square foot facility there that's been doubled since then. And of course, Amazon is now occupying 1,400,000 square feet right there on that interchange. So the folks at North Point decided they're not going to just build one building at a time. They're building 4 speculative facilities right now. 669,000 square foot spec building, cross docks coming out of the ground as we speak, with 3 other buildings between 270,000 feet and 330,000 feet following, and it'll all be finished by March of 2023. So this is the type of thing that we would never have seen but for the Heart of the Triad, because otherwise it would have been developed helter-skelter with no planning. But thankfully, we had visionary developers like the Griffins and Arthur Samet that were able to get that infrastructure put in place so that the area could flourish.
Mayor Newell Clark down in Lexington is a great friend of mine. He also listens to the show, and they just structured a deal in Lexington also with Arthur Samet for a 700-acre industrial park down there. So not just Winston, Greensboro, and High Point, but even down in Lexington, the Triad is just roaring. And I think everything you just described, Robbie, is great for Kernersville too. I worked on a Kernersville campaign for town council this past election cycle, and Kernersville is just growing leaps and bounds, and I think a lot of what you described is going to continue to drive so much more growth in that area. You do a lot of real estate deals. You do a lot of big real estate transactions. Typically, when companies are looking to relocate to an area, you may be one of the first people to know about it, or first person to hear about it, simply because they're looking for a piece of property. What is the general mood when large companies, especially outside of North Carolina, when they look here at the central part of North Carolina right now?
Well, it's really difficult to find large tracts of land. And I think that's one of the things that we're all going to struggle with from here on out, because with the demand for industrial space combined with where we're going to put subdivisions to house the people that are going to work in all these new companies, there's been a real land rush. So I think the biggest challenge we're going to have is finding parcels that are fully entitled, water, sewer, zoning, power, good transportation network, and holding them out for companies that are going to really employ a lot of people and put a substantial investment in the community. So in fact, I got a call last week looking for 100-acre sites, and each one of the companies, there were 2 companies looking for the sites, $1 billion investments in each one. So those are the types of things that we're seeing now. And the challenge is going to be, how do we put it together? So for somebody like me, there's no such thing as a 100-acre perfect site that's just sitting out there. So it's going to have to be cobbled together with multiple properties, and then utilities extended, and then making sure that there's enough power supply for the business to turn on the lights and run the machine. So it's getting harder, and will be as our areas grow together.
You know, COVID has been so disruptive to all businesses. I mean, not just our local economy, but the national economy all around the world. I am really deep into the food and beverage industry, as many would know. Certainly, that industry has just been ravaged by COVID and the restrictions and fear and so many things over the last 18 months or so. Talk about the real estate business. A lot of what you and I are talking about today sounds like industrial. I know housing's doing really well. But office isn't doing as well. Retail may not be doing as well. What's the future of those asset classes when we look at commercial real estate?
Well, there's just been a complete shift in how people look at the work environment. In fact, I was just with a senior broker from Charlotte this morning, and he was saying that the Charlotte Central Business District office demand is just very flat. A building that used to house 2,000 people now houses 300. So what does that do, and where does that spill over to the restaurants and small shops that serve that 2,000 person building? They're all suffering. So I do think the office demand is going to come back, but it's going to be much slower than ever. But I do think areas like Greensboro and Winston-Salem may benefit from people migrating out of the bigger cities. And there may be some demand for headquarters office to move from, say, New York to Winston-Salem and take some of the vacancy there, because from a cost standpoint, I mean, you can lease space at 25% of what it would cost to lease it in New York City. And your employees are going to be excellent. So I do think there's a future there. Retail depends on what kind of retail you're in. Food anchored shopping centers are still strong, but the big box stores aren't getting built anymore. The Amazons of the world have changed the nature of that business. And so I think the small service oriented retail strips will do fine. But it's certainly going to be a slower deal. I think what you'll see is some experiential retail coming to the Triad. I think that we are going to get that type of thing because people want to get out, they want to have a good time. So experiential retail, I think, is going to be strong. The residential sector is exploding. Apartments, I mean, find an apartment for rent. And if you went last year and you shopped it, it'd be up 20-25% this year. And I think more rental increases are going to be coming because of the large job growth that we've got in the area. So housing, single family housing, as long as you're under that $400,000 price point, and as long as these interest rates stay low, I don't see any stopping that. But of course, if interest rates go up, 2 points, that's going to take 30 or 40% of the people out of the range where they can afford to buy a $300,000 to $400,000 home. So it's really going to, and yet you really can't build them. You can't build a $200,000 freestanding house anymore. That's impossible to do. So housing affordability is going to be big everywhere in the Carolinas, and we're seeing it in the Triad right now.
I think you're right. I was meeting with Mayor Algenon here in Winston-Salem, and he said the community, our city, needs between 14 and 16,000 affordable housing units in the next 8 years. So that's going to be a huge growth opportunity, especially for those that are looking to get in the real estate business. Robbie, man, I'm out of time already, but I love talking to you, and I hate it's been so long since I have talked to you, because you're always very informative. You know what's going on. I always love your optimism, and you're always so positive about the Triad and about North Carolina, and I certainly miss that. Real quick before we go, Any other predictions? You were spot on about this 10 years ago. Any other predictions for the Triad that we can be watching?
Well, I've always said that the Triad deserves a place as the third leg of the economic development stool for North Carolina, that Charlotte and Raleigh are two legs, and we're going to be that third leg. We'll be a little different, but yet unique in our own way. To have three downtowns, High Point, Greensboro, Winston-Salem, that are interesting, that are cool, gives people alternatives, and it keeps us to the point where we are larger metros. We feel really good to people, but they can still do everything they want to do. So I think the sky's the limit for the Triad. I think Project Boom Supersonic, if it is announced this week, is going to be huge, and combined with the Toyota battery plant, we're on the edge of two cutting edge technologies. The educational opportunities here in the Triad are unsurpassed, with Wake Forest and Winston-Salem State, and in Winston-Salem, and North Carolina A&T, UNCG, Elon, High Point University. I mean, we've got, we're going to keep some of these folks here because they're going to have jobs that are going to pay well. And that's what I want to see in the future. I want to see our median household incomes go through the roof, and I want to see the quality of life for every person in this area improve. And if we can do that, I'm a happy guy.
To my audience, you can see why I wanted this man to run for governor many years ago. I think that might be off the table these days. He's making too much money selling real estate now, but I was always hoping that he would, try to get down to Raleigh, because he has such great vision, not only about Central North Carolina, but just the state as a whole. Robbie, thank you again for locking in with me. To my audience, the other voice that you just heard was Robbie Perkins. He is a high-profile commercial real estate broker with NAI, based out of Greensboro, but does work all over. I would encourage you to go learn more about him. He's on LinkedIn. He's on Facebook. Go learn more about his firm and some of the transactions that they are doing. Until next time, also make sure you're checking out the Locked In podcast. It is available on Apple, Spotify, Pandora, wherever you get your favorite podcasts. You can lock in with me there. Of course, we got our YouTube channel up and running. You can lock in with me on Instagram, Facebook. We are all over. But always, until next time, y'all stay locked in.